Most men grow up confused, overworked, and underestimated. Not because they are weak, but because they were trained to be harmless. Today, we solve the problem no one warned you about: why being nice, honest, and patient keeps you powerless in a ruthless world, and what you should have been taught instead. Listen closely, because this is where most men were misled before they ever had a chance. You were taught that if your heart was pure, the world would meet you halfway. That if your intentions were good, people would sense it. That effort, honesty, and patience would eventually be noticed and rewarded. That belief didn't make you noble. It made you predictable. Power does not operate on morality. Power operates on pressure. The world does not scan your intentions. It measures your capacity to resist, to impose, to walk away. And if you lack that capacity, your goodness becomes irrelevant. Your father should have told you this early. Respect is not granted to the well-meaning. It is granted to the unavoidable. Look around you. The men who rise are not always the smartest or the most ethical. They are the ones who cannot be ignored, bypassed, or exploited without consequence. They project something silent but unmistakable. This person costs something to cross. You were taught to be agreeable. Power teaches you to be decisive. You were taught to explain yourself. Power teaches you to let outcomes speak. When you rely on good intentions, you hand control to others, because intentions require interpretation, and interpretation can always be twisted. Strength, however, needs no explanation. A man with leverage does not argue his worth. He does not beg to be understood. He does not plead for fairness. His presence alone sets boundaries. And this is the part no one warns you about. People test weakness unconsciously. They may smile while doing it, but they test all the same. They interrupt you. They delay you. They question you more than others. They take liberties they would never take with someone stronger, not because they hate you, but because power invites challenge where it senses safety. Good intentions signal safety. Strength signals limits. Your father should have taught you that being respected is not about being liked. It is about being measured carefully. When you walk into a room, the calculation begins immediately. How much can I push this man? How much can I take? What happens if I cross him? If the answer is nothing, your morality becomes decoration. Power respects clarity, clear boundaries, clear consequences, clear self-possession. You do not need to be cruel, but you must be capable, because capability changes behavior without words. Think of the men who never have to raise their voice, never have to threaten, never have to justify. People move differently around them. That is not charm, that is strength with restraint. Your father may have told you to always give the benefit of the doubt. Power tells you to withhold trust until behavior earns it. He may have told you to treat everyone the same. Power tells you to treat people according to how they treat power itself. Good intentions assume others share your values. Strength assumes nothing and prepares for everything. And here is the hardest truth to accept. People rarely respect sacrifices they didn't ask for. They respect standards they must rise to. When you overgive without leverage, you train people to take. When you stand firm, you teach them where the line is. Power does not need anger. It needs certainty. Certainty in your posture, certainty in your decisions, certainty in your willingness to walk away. The man who can leave is the man who controls the exchange. Your father should have said this plainly. Never confuse being harmless with being virtuous. A harmless man is not trusted in high-stakes environments. He is managed, used, or ignored. A strong man who chooses restraint is feared quietly and respected openly. This is why power listens to strength and dismisses intention. Because intention is invisible, strength is undeniable. When you build strength, mental, financial, social, physical, you change the rules without announcing it. People stop negotiating against you and start negotiating with you. They speak more carefully. They promise less and deliver more. They hesitate before testing you. Not because you demanded it, but because power recognizes its own language. And once you understand this, you stop asking why people don't treat you better, and you start asking how strong you have become. Because the world mirrors leverage, not virtue. And until you embody that truth completely, every interaction will quietly remind you that intentions alone have never protected anyone who lacked the power to enforce them, especially when the stakes rise and the masks fall, and you realize that respect was never about who you are inside, but about what you can withstand, withdraw, and impose when necessary. When silence speaks louder than explanation, when presence outweighs promises, and when strength finally replaces hope as your primary defense, because power has always answered to one thing only, and it is not goodness. It is the undeniable weight of a man who cannot be easily moved, dismissed, or controlled, a man whose boundaries are felt before they are spoken, whose calm signals readiness, whose restraint implies force, and whose existence alone changes how others calculate their next move. Because power does not ask if you mean well, it asks what happens if it crosses you, and until that answer carries weight, everything else you were taught remains dangerously incomplete. You were encouraged to speak early, explain quickly, and react honestly. That advice came from a world that rewarded transparency. This world does not. Power is not impressed by noise. It is shaped by control. Silence is not emptiness. Silence is pressure. When you remain quiet, people begin to fill the space with themselves. They reveal intentions, insecurities, and strategies without realizing it. The man who speaks last does not rush. He collects. Your father should have taught you that words are not tools of expression first. They are tools of positioning. Every sentence you release places you somewhere in the hierarchy of the room. Men who speak too much lower their value, not because their thoughts are useless, but because availability weakens weight. The more predictable your reactions, the easier you are to control. Silence interrupts expectations. It creates discomfort, and discomfort makes people careless. Watch how quickly others rush to explain themselves when you don't respond. Watch how authority shifts when you pause instead of answering immediately. That pause forces recalculation. Power moves in time, not emotion. Most mistakes are not made because men lack intelligence. They are made because men move too soon. Reacting instantly feels strong. Waiting feels weak. But waiting is what allows the battlefield to reveal itself. Your father should have warned you that speed is only valuable when direction is certain. Otherwise, speed is exposure. The man who masters timing understands when to advance and when to disappear, when to speak and when to let silence do the work, when to act publicly and when to maneuver quietly. Silence also protects you. Every word you don't speak is information. You don't surrender. In a world driven by leverage, information is currency. When you talk about your plans, people adjust against you. When you stay silent, they move blindly. The quiet man sees patterns others miss. He notices who talks when nervous, who lies when pressured, who changes tone when power enters the room. Observation sharpens instinct into strategy. Your father may have told you to defend yourself when accused. Power tells you to let time expose truth. Explanations invite debate. Debate invites doubt. Silence forces others to sit with uncertainty, and uncertainty weakens opponents more than argument ever could. There is a reason powerful figures are often vague. Clarity limits options. Ambiguity expands them. When you reveal everything, you give others the advantage of preparation. When you reveal little, they are forced to guess. And people make mistakes when they guess. Timing is the difference between dominance and regret. Say the right thing at the wrong time, and it becomes weakness. Say nothing at the right time, and it becomes authority. Your father should have taught you that patience is not passivity, it is positioning. The hunter does not rush the prey. He studies movement. He waits for the moment when resistance collapses naturally. Men who act too early alert their enemies. Men who act too late lose opportunity. Power belongs to the man who knows the difference. Silence also builds mystique. When people know what you're thinking, they project onto you, and projection often works in your favor. A man who is unreadable is rarely underestimated. A man who explains himself is always sized up. Control your expressions, control your tone, control your pace. Not because you are hiding weakness, but because you are preserving advantage. Your father may have told you that honesty builds trust. Power tells you that selective disclosure builds control. You do not owe everyone access to your thoughts. You do not owe anyone immediate reactions. You do not owe explanations to those who have not earned your clarity. When you speak less, your words land heavier. People lean in. They listen differently. Silence turns ordinary statements into events. This is why leaders pause before responding, why judges speak slowly, why commanders give short orders. Economy of words signals authority. The man who controls timing controls outcomes. He chooses moments when others are tired, overconfident, distracted, or emotionally exposed. He enters when resistance is low and exits before backlash forms. Your father should have taught you this final truth about silence. It is not about being quiet forever. It is about speaking once, when it matters most. And when you finally speak, after watching, after waiting, after letting others reveal themselves, your words do not argue, they conclude, because silence has already done the work of weakening opposition, shifting momentum, and reshaping perception, so that when action comes, it feels inevitable, not aggressive, calculated rather than emotional, and by then, the room has already adjusted to your presence, your restraint, your patience, and your control of time itself. Because power does not rush to be heard, it waits until it cannot be ignored. And once you understand that silence is not absence but accumulation, that timing is not delay but dominance, and that observation is not weakness but intelligence in motion, you stop reacting to the world and start letting the world reveal exactly when and how it can be moved. You were warned about anger, but you were never trained in containment. You were told not to lose your temper, yet no one explained that every visible emotion is a message, and every message can be intercepted, decoded, and used against you. Power does not fear emotion, it exploits it. Your father should have taught you that masculinity is not loud dominance or physical aggression. It is the ability to remain unmoved while others lose balance. The man who reacts emotionally hands over the steering wheel. The man who stays composed keeps control of the direction, even when the road turns hostile. Think about how often people provoke not to win, but to expose. They poke, insult, delay, disrespect, not to overpower you, but to make you reveal yourself. Because once they know what triggers you, they own a map of your weaknesses. Anger shortens vision. Fear accelerates mistakes. Excitement loosens discipline. Self-control keeps perception wide. Your father should have told you this clearly. The world does not defeat men by force first. It defeats them by temptation and reaction. Watch how many lives collapse, not from lack of talent, but from lack of restraint. One outburst, one message sent too quickly, one insult answered instead of ignored, one pleasure taken at the wrong time. Masculinity is not the absence of feeling, it is the mastery of response. The strongest men feel deeply. They simply refuse to broadcast it. Silence after provocation is not weakness, it is discipline announcing itself. When you do not react, people become uncomfortable. They expected chaos. They prepared for conflict. Your calm forces them to confront their own instability. That imbalance shifts power instantly. Your father may have told you to stand up for yourself immediately. Power teaches you to choose the moment of confrontation, or whether it is needed at all. Every reaction has a cost: energy, reputation, leverage. Men who react to everything control nothing. Self-control is also about delaying gratification, doing what is easy now versus what is powerful later. The world is full of men who chased pleasure and lost position, who chose comfort and sacrificed authority, who wanted approval and traded independence. Your father should have taught you that discipline compounds. The man who can say no today owns tomorrow. Control your appetite, control your speech, control your need to be validated. The man who needs nothing from others becomes impossible to manipulate. Emotionally reactive men are predictable. Predictability is vulnerability. The calm man is unreadable. Uncertainty makes others cautious. This is why powerful figures appear almost cold, not because they lack feeling, but because they refuse to leak it. Every visible emotion is a negotiation signal. Frustration signals impatience. Excitement signals overinvestment. Anger signals loss of control. Self-control keeps your bargaining position intact. Your father should have told you that masculinity is not proven in moments of comfort, but in moments of pressure, when insulted publicly, when delayed deliberately, when challenged indirectly. Anyone can be calm when respected. Only disciplined men stay calm when tested. And tests are constant. Self-control also protects your future self, the version of you that must live with the consequences of today's impulses. Men regret reactions more than silence. They regret messages sent, words spoken, bridges burned. Rarely does a man regret staying composed. Your presence changes when you master this. People hesitate before provoking you. They sense there is no easy win. The man who cannot be rattled becomes the man who sets the pace. Your father may have told you to be yourself. Power tells you to be strategic with yourself. Not every thought deserves expression. Not every feeling deserves action. Not every battle deserves engagement. Self-control is the filter that turns raw instinct into precision. The man with restraint chooses when to be dangerous. That choice is the essence of masculinity, because uncontrolled strength is chaos. Controlled strength is authority. When you stop reacting, you start deciding. When you start deciding, you start leading. This is why the calm man walks into chaos and seems to slow time. Others rush, he waits. Others panic, he measures. Your father should have told you that the goal was never to suppress emotion, but to command it. Emotion is fuel. Self-control is the engine. Without an engine, fuel explodes. With one, it moves mountains. Once you understand this, you stop trying to prove yourself through reactions, volume, or displays, and you start letting your restraint speak for you, because real masculinity is not the man who explodes when challenged, but the man who remains steady, unreadable, and deliberate while others unravel. The man who can sit in silence with his anger, his fear, his desire, and choose exactly when and how to act, knowing that every controlled moment compounds into authority. Every resisted impulse strengthens his position, and every unspoken reaction keeps his power intact. Because in a world addicted to impulse, the man who governs himself governs outcomes, governs perception, and ultimately governs the room without ever needing to announce it. You were taught to give first, to prove your value through sacrifice, to earn love by effort, loyalty by obedience, and respect by patience. That lesson sounded noble, but it was incomplete, and in many cases destructive. Your father should have told you a harder truth. The world does not respond to need, it responds to leverage. Love, loyalty, and respect are not moral rewards. They are strategic responses to value. When you seek them before you build anything solid beneath you, you place yourself in a position of weakness, and weakness reshapes relationships silently. People may care about you, they may even admire your effort, but admiration without dependence does not protect you. It does not anchor loyalty. It does not guarantee respect. Leverage does. Leverage is what makes your presence matter even when you say nothing. It is what turns your absence into a loss. It is what shifts dynamics without confrontation. Your father should have taught you that affection given freely is often taken lightly, while affection backed by value is guarded carefully. Look at how loyalty actually forms in the real world, not through promises, through necessity. People stay close to those who provide access, stability, protection, opportunity, or direction, not because they are cruel, but because survival instincts never disappeared. When you build leverage, relationships recalibrate automatically. Respect grows quieter but deeper. Loyalty becomes consistent rather than emotional. Love becomes less conditional. Without leverage, you are asking others to choose you out of goodwill. With leverage, choosing you becomes logical. This is why chasing validation backfires. When you need approval, you surrender negotiating power. People sense it immediately. Your father should have warned you that wanting to be liked too early makes you easy to overlook later. Build first, then choose. Build competence so your skills cannot be dismissed. Build independence so your absence creates tension. Build reputation so your name carries weight before you arrive. Build resources so you are not forced into bad compromises. Leverage does not mean manipulation, it means optionality. The man with options is never desperate. The man without options overextends himself trying to be chosen. Desperation leaks through tone, posture, timing, and once it is sensed, respect erodes quietly. Your father may have told you to always be there for others. Power teaches you to be there selectively. Availability without boundaries lowers value. Scarcity with consistency increases it. This is why the most respected men are not the most accessible ones. They are reliable, but not needy, present, but not dependent. Leverage allows you to give without draining yourself, to care without being controlled, to love without surrendering. Authority. Without leverage, love turns into appeasement, loyalty turns into tolerance, respect turns into politeness. With leverage, dynamics reverse. People listen when you speak. They adjust when you withdraw. They consider NCEs when dealing with you. Your father should have told you that relationships are not maintained by effort alone, but by position. Position is built, not requested. Men who skip this step end up confused. They give more and receive less. They stay longer and are valued less. They sacrifice hoping things will change. Leverage prevents that trap. When you know your worth is anchored in what you bring, not what you beg for, you stop over-explaining, over-giving, and overextending. You choose where to invest. You choose who gets access. You choose when to engage. That choice is power. Your father may have framed this as selfishness. It is not. It is sustainability. A man without leverage burns out trying to be everything for everyone. A man with leverage sets terms and remains respected within them. This applies to friendships, careers, family, and romance. Wherever value flows one way, imbalance follows. Leverage restores equilibrium. It allows you to say no without fear, to walk away without panic, to stay without losing yourself. Your father should have told you that loyalty is strongest when it is not demanded, but earned through necessity and consistency. People protect what strengthens them. Once you understand this, you stop chasing emotional guarantees and start building foundations that make guarantees unnecessary. Because when you bring something irreplaceable to the table, people think twice before risking your absence. They weigh their words, they honor commitments more carefully, and they treat your time with respect, not because you ask them to, but because leverage silently enforces standards. And in a world driven by incentives rather than intentions, the man who builds leverage first never has to beg for loyalty, negotiate for respect, or perform for love, because his position speaks before he does. His value precedes his presence, and his independence makes every relationship a choice rather than a necessity, shifting the balance permanently in his favor. Where love becomes genuine instead of conditional, loyalty becomes stable instead of emotional, and respect becomes unavoidable rather than requested. Now you understand what was missing. Not love, not effort, not intention, structure. You were not weak, you were unarmed, you were not naive, you were uninstructed, you were not failing. You were playing by rules that no longer exist. The advice your father should have given you was never about cruelty or manipulation. It was about readiness. Readiness to be silent when others expose themselves. Readiness to control emotion when others collapse. Readiness to build leverage before asking for anything from the world. Readiness to understand that power moves quietly, patiently, and without apology. This is the shift, from reacting to choosing, from explaining to positioning, from hoping to knowing. Once you stop seeking validation and start building gravity, the world adjusts. People listen differently. They test you less. They respect boundaries you no longer need to announce. You do not need to become ruthless. You need to become formidable with restraint. The world does not change for men who ask. It changes for men who arrive prepared. And now, you are no longer waiting for permission, guidance, or approval. You are standing where power begins, with clarity instead of confusion, discipline instead of impulse, leverage instead of need, and the understanding that the lessons you lacked were never meant to keep you soft, but to be reclaimed, refined, and used, because the moment you internalize these truths, you stop living as a participant in other people's designs and start shaping outcomes on your own terms, with calm authority, quiet dominance, and the kind of presence that needs no explanation because it was never meant to be given, only felt